The film opens with a chilling execution scene. A convicted serial killer named Jon Forster, dubbed the Seattle Slayer by the police, is about to be put to death for the brutal murders of several young women. The key witness who helped put him on death row is forensic psychiatrist Dr. Jack Gramm. Dr. Gramm is a respected professor and FBI consultant who specializes in profiling violent criminals. His testimony and expert psychiatric opinion were crucial in securing Forster's conviction for the attempted killing of Janie Cates and the murder of her sister Joni, who was drugged, hanged upside down, and killed after the attacker invaded the sister's apartment. Forster receives a guilty verdict. 9 years later, as his execution date approaches, several similar torture murders occur, carried out in the same style the imprisoned Forster once used. Gramm, now teaching at the University of Washington, is approached by FBI Special Agent Frank Parks, who wants his assistance with the latest murders in the city and suggests that the real killer may still be on the loose. The latest victim, Dale Morris, is revealed to have been a former psychology student of Gramm's and his patient a year earlier. They had attended the same party the night before. Gramm soon becomes an official suspect. Before her death, Dale recorded a message stating that Gramm had convicted the wrong man and that Forster was innocent. This leads the police to question whether Forster may have been convicted without sufficient proof. Forster himself has given several interviews, claiming that forensic psychiatry is a myth and that he was convicted without any real proof, based only on reconstructed images of the murders that publicly crucified him. But everything changes with a single phone call. On the morning of Forster's execution, while walking to his class, Jack Gramm receives a phone call from someone using a voice changer, informing him that he has 88 minutes to live and tells him time is on TikTok countdown. He reports the call to his secretary, Shelly, asking her to trace its origin. He also asked her to compile a list of all the calls made by Forster in the last 72 hours. At first, he thinks it is a prank, but when he arrives at work, Gramm receives another threatening phone call while teaching, reminding him that time is ticking. Gramm asks Shelly to trace the calls, and she discovers that the phone used to make them is registered to Kate Gramm, his sister who passed away at a young age. He then becomes suspicious of his student Mike Stempt after noticing him using a phone during class. Strange and disturbing events begin to unfold. A student is murdered in a manner that mirrors Forster's original killings. Evidence begins to point towards someone close to Jack. His apartment is broken into, his car is sabotaged, and surveillance photos of him surface. Someone is watching him and carefully planning his downfall. The question becomes clear: is Forster truly guilty, or did Jack put the wrong man behind bars? As the clock ticks down, Jack scrambles to figure out who wants him dead. He begins to suspect that the killer might be one of his own students. While exiting the parking garage stairwell, Gramm encounters one of his students, Lauren Douglas, who has been attacked by an unknown assailant. He immediately reports the assault to campus security. Gramm doesn't want Lauren to return to her apartment until the locks are changed. Jack then calls Frank and instructs him to conduct a security risk assessment and also determine which students have visited Forster in prison. Kim explains that she has a dangerous ex-boyfriend named Guy who spent time in the same prison as Forster, which is why she carries a gun in her tote bag. Frank informs Gramm that Mike has met with Forster in prison 4 times over the past 6 weeks for research purposes, claiming he has written permission from Gramm, which Gramm never signed. Meanwhile, someone manipulates the evidence to make it appear as though Jack himself is responsible for the new murder. His credibility begins to crumble. The police start doubting him, his allies grow distant, and every move he makes seems to be part of someone else's twisted game. With less than an hour remaining, Jack realizes this isn't random revenge. It's psychological warfare. The killer wants him paranoid, isolated, and desperate. Gramm and Kim go to his apartment, where a package has been delivered. Inside, they find an audio tape of his younger sister, Kate, crying for help before Gramm concludes that someone must have accessed his secure files to obtain the recording. While watching Forster's live media interview, Kim's ex-boyfriend Guy, the biker, suddenly appears at the apartment door with a gun. Guy is suddenly shot and killed from behind by an assailant wearing a motorcycle helmet. Amid the chaos, the shooter escapes through the crowd outside. The tension intensifies as Jack races through the city, chasing leads, confronting suspects, and narrowly escaping attempts on his life. While driving together, Gramm and Kim visit Sarah Pollard, a woman with whom Gramm had an affair the night before. However, they find her murdered in her apartment, with evidence that incriminates Gramm. Carol then calls Gramm and makes remarks suggesting that she's the killer, demanding that he meet her at his office. Shelly arrives at Sarah's apartment and tells Gramm that she suspects Lauren was the one who stole the audio tape of Kate's death. Lauren had seduced Shelly a few weeks earlier, which is when Shelly believes the tape may have been taken. Gramm also learns from Shelly that Sarah was working as an escort. Shortly afterward, Frank confronts Gramm, informing him that his fingerprints are all over Dale's apartment. Gramm explains that someone hired Sarah to be with him the previous night, stole his semen, planted it on Dale, and then murdered Sarah. He insists that he is being framed. Gramm then asks Frank to meet him at his office at the university. Every clue feels like a trap. Then comes the shocking revelation. The mastermind behind the scheme is one of his own students, someone who idolized Forster and believed he was innocent. The entire 88-minute countdown was carefully orchestrated as an act of revenge, designed to destroy Jack's reputation and make him experience the same fear his victims once felt. In a final confrontation, Jack manages to outsmart the killer just before time runs out. By examining prison visitation records, Gramm deduces that Forster's appeals attorney, Lydia Doherty, is actually a pseudonym used by Lauren. He concludes that she orchestrated the entire setup under Forster's instructions. Kim calls again, instructing Gramm to come to another nearby location on campus. When he arrives, he finds Carol hanging over a 7th-floor balcony, while Kim is tied up and gagged nearby, held at gunpoint by Lauren. Lauren then forces Gramm to confess on tape that he gave false testimony during Forster's trial. Special Agent Parks arrives and shoots Lauren, causing both Carol and Lauren to slip partially over the balcony. Gramm manages to save Carol from falling, but Lauren loses her grip and plunges to her death. When Forster calls asking to speak with Lauren, Gramm informs him of her death. Aware that Forster had used a junior lawyer on his staff to carry out murders, Gramm quips, "Tick-tock, tick-tock, you've got 12 hours to live," before throwing the phone into the void. Gramm flashes back to his interactions with Kate and Janie Cates, then pockets the device that recorded his confession. He exchanges knowing glances with Parks and Kim before walking away. The police intervene, the truth is revealed, and Forster's execution proceeds as planned. Thanks for watching.